Anyone who knows me knows I love music, and I take it pretty serious. I built this speaker you see here and a matching one on the other side. There's a couple subwoofers down here you can just see the tops of. With the help of a couple friends, I built those. I arranged my office so that my chair is in the prime listening spot, right in the middle of those, and I end a lot of days just listening to music. Again, I really like it, and I think God's people have always liked music and realized, and God realizes how important it is. That's why an entire book of the Bible is the hymn book of the Old Testament. I'm talking about the book of Psalms. In one sense, you could consider it the original Christian music channel. Well, I hope you like this video over a psalm, and if so, then if you do me a favor and click the thumbs up, leave a comment, I always love that, and or share it on a social media site like Facebook, that would be a huge help. Thanks a lot. So I knew as I was getting ready for this series on Psalm 40 that I'd be doing more than one video, but I didn't expect to be doing more than one video on these exact same verses that started off. But as I was looking and getting ready to resolve this wait a minute moment of waiting patiently and then hurry up, Lord, as I dug a little deeper, I saw something. I use BibleGateway.com. It's one of those free sites that I talk about in that video you get when you sign up for the email reminders of these weekly videos. And one of the translations I always have open is Young's literal translation. And I looked at it, and there, instead of I waited patiently for the Lord, it said, I have diligently expected the Lord, or Jehovah, it says. And I thought, okay, that's different. And I dug a little deeper again with some of those tools, and it gave a very interesting, different shade of meaning. And I don't think that, necessarily one is right and one is wrong. Both shades of meaning are there in the Hebrew word. But it definitely gives another lesson, another thing for us to focus on, another way to resolve this idea as well. When it says, I have diligently expected Jehovah, that idea fits in with the way it's translated in the other translations where it says, I waited patiently for the Lord. This idea of waiting on the Lord, it's a phrase that occurs many times in Psalms, some other places in the Old Testament, and even a couple times in the New Testament. Andrew Murray, an older author, has a book called Waiting on God, tremendous book that looks at this idea. Two main ideas that you get when you look at all these passages that talk about waiting on the Lord. There's two key elements of that waiting. It's not like, okay, God, you said you'd be here at 10:35 and it's 10:40. No, but what it does mean, first of all, is it's the idea of being absolutely dependent on God. It doesn't mean that I don't do anything in my life, whether in general or certainly my spiritual walk with God, but I realize that when it comes down to it, I am absolutely dependent on God for everything. Certainly to go above and beyond anything I can do, but even what I can do, it comes from God. I'm absolutely dependent on Him. And then the other side of it is I'm confidently expectant. That's what you see. I diligently expected the Lord there. I'm confidently expectant. Now, it doesn't mean God's going to do, I expect Him to do whatever I want when I want it. No, that's not at all. But I do expect Him to work. I'm dependent on Him, and I expect Him to do what He knows is best. And that we can be expectant, confidently expectant, because that's who God is. It's His nature. It's what He's shown Himself to be like. From the very beginning, why did God create us? To have a relationship with us, and God's role in that relationship is to provide for and bless us. Our role is to worship and glorify Him. That's what God has wanted. That's what He's always done. And so you put those together, I can be absolutely dependent on God because He's all powerful. He's in control. He knows all, He has all wisdom, and He's all powerful. God's in control, and He loves me, so I can have this confident expectation. And I believe that's what David is saying in that verse there as well. I think that is a shade of the meaning. I waited patiently on the Lord, and I knew He would do what He can do when it's best to do it. Whatever's best. Those two go together. Well, then what's it mean when down below at verses 13 and 17, he says, "O Lord, make haste to help me." And verse 17, "Do not delay, O my God." Well, I look at this and I think it's a little different element of, in general, David has this absolute dependence and confident expectation. And looking back on the past situation, that characterized it. But it seems like maybe being right in this situation at the time, that there's an element of uncertainty. You could even say doubt. That, boy, down deep I know that God's in control and He loves me. Down deep, I'm absolutely dependent and confidently expectant. But there's times where the situation just overwhelms us a little bit, where our faith gets a little shaken. And you know what? That's totally normal. I came across a commentator who said the tension between having and striving for the certainty of faith. So having it at times and striving for it at others belongs to the very essence of faith. It's part of the life of faith, which is the believer's life. We walk by faith, not by sight. But that's saying, and I think it's true, that faith, down deep, foundationally, it's there, but boy, there's times where it gets challenged. And I'm striving to have that certainty that I have at other times, and maybe deep down I have. And I know that characterizes me. I can think of time. I think, one of the areas I believe God works with us in is finances, because it's so cut and dried, and He shows He can be trusted there. Well, then some other things that are a little harder to nail down, relationships or things like that, like trust Him there as well. God has done so much in my life, in our life, my wife and I, in this area of finances. We've had times where we just realize our absolute dependence on Him. And because of that, we are now confidently expectant. Not that He'll always do it when we want or as much as we want, like we want, but God, we can trust You. We know that. That's our baseline. That's our foundation down deep. But at the same time, every once in a while, something will happen and I get shaken. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? How's this going to work out? And then it takes me a while to come back. But I do come back. My wife said something similar the other day that, about a different area where in general, she's doing fine. And something just came up and it shook her for about 10 minutes. And then she came back around. I think that's the normal life of a believer, the normal life of faith. And I think that's what we're seeing from David here. That he looks back on this past situation and in general, God, I waited patiently for You. That doesn't mean even regarding that one, there weren't some moments. But in general, and well, now he's right in the middle of this other situation, this new distress, whatever it is. And he's saying, oh God, please hurry. Don't delay. It seems like he's striving for some of that certainty, but it's not quite there yet. And so he's saying, hurry up, God. And again, that's totally normal. It's totally okay. God expects that. The one thing that we have to realize about this, just like the key to the waiting patiently was I need to be surrendered. I'd like it to be quicker, but I'm surrendered. Well, the key here is there's part of me that has the certainty of faith. There's this part of me that doesn't. Faith and doubt, you might even say. Well, what really matters is which one I act on. And a lot of times we're faced with a choice. I've got so much faith. I've got so much doubt. The Father, I believe, help my unbelief. Which one do I act out of, faith or doubt? That's what really counts. I can have the doubt, but as long as I act out of the faith, that's walking by faith. And that's what we need to do with God. And we need to look back on times where we've seen what He's done. That's what David does. And that's how he has that general faith of, God, I know I can trust You. I'm waiting on You with absolute dependence and confident expectation.